pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the mission of Tyler County Schools is to provide student-centered learning opportunities that ensure all students will learn to their potential and master the skills, ethical behaviors, and attitudes needed to be successful citizens in a 21st century economy. Roll call. All board members are present. Approval of the minutes from the October 21st regular meeting. Do I have a motion? Larry made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Scott seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. Next on our agenda is a work session focusing on school board governance, and it will be facilitated by Jim Brown, the Executive Director of the West Virginia School Board Association. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Kind of weird hearing you say that now that I'm sitting in Tyler County, because for 23 years out of it's my 40th year, so it's been 17 years since I've actually been back in an official capacity, so I appreciate the opportunity. A couple things before we get started. Thanks to Superintendent Hiley for reaching out and Mrs. Byers to put this together and allow me the opportunity to come up and meet with you guys. This is a work session, so we have a little bit of latitude, and so we can go back and forth. It's not a presentation, so we can have a conversation, discussion about any of the points that maybe we'll cover today. I've put together a couple handouts, and I'll explain the one that you have in front of you. But it's important for me to make sure we're clear on one thing. As the Executive Director of the West Virginia School Board Association, my role is to support county boards of education. I am not an attorney, and I do not have the privilege to provide legal guidance. And I will be honest with you, that's kind of a blessing for me, because as you guys know, I don't see anybody with a book in front of them, but that's 600 pages. It's about 8 font. The law is very complicated in West Virginia, and it's not something you haven't heard before. But even if we were able to memorize the law book, it wouldn't be enough, because a lot of things are decided through grievance decisions or advisory opinions, maybe through the Attorney General, or it could be through the Ethics Commission. So it's not just completely linear. It's got so many different entanglements that I'm just thankful that I'm not an attorney charged with having to cipher out West Virginia school law. But some of the things and we tried, well, Mr. Hiley, it looks like the internet is actually working. Now, I'm not going to jinx it by hitting the web browser, am I?
I don't think so.
Come on.
You did.
Did it go out?
Yeah.
Unreal.
It's done it to me twice now. I got it's back up again.
Try Google Chrome and see if it likes it better.
It did.
It's a miracle. We were close.
Getting close. I'm guessing it's just service around the area.
So we'll go paper form.
Okay.
So also what I want to make sure I share with you before we get into any specifics. So the conversation that we can have this evening has to be in general terms, hypotheticals. We wouldn't want to breach any confidentiality or anything that should be protected. So if there's a scenario that you'd like, a question that you'd like to ask, put it into context in a hypothetical situation. So we avoid ourselves getting in any kind of pickle. So on the first page of the handout that I've provided to you, and much of what I've got here is actually on our website. So when I took over 2 years, it's now going on my 3rd year, we had a paper handbook for school board members, and it was about that thick. And it was outdated the day it was printed. So my goal was to create a digital process. So on our website, we have a school board member manual. Everything on there has been vetted through our general counsel, through Bowles Rice. Questions that come up from board members, fellow board members, that require us to go get that legal advice, we've included it on our website. And I've tried to, where it's applicable, is to make sure it's in question format. So you don't have to search a section in code, it's just there in that moment in time. The other thing is, anytime it's linked to state code, it's set up so it's right to the database at the legislature, so when it changes, our website automatically links to that updated version. But one of the things that's right in the beginning, and it's under Chapter 1 in our school board manual, it says 3 fiduciary responsibilities or duties of county board members. Those of you who are at the new orientation training, you probably heard some of this. And first one is duty of good faith. Board members must always act in the best interest of the school district. This standard underscores everything they do, from making business decisions to managing corporate assets to identifying and disclosing potential conflicts of interest. Secondly, duty of care. Board members must handle business affairs with the same level of care they would in their own personal dealings. They must exercise a degree of diligence prudence that an ordinary board member would under similar circumstances. In fulfilling this duty, officers and directors must stay reasonably informed about the business. They can rely on the opinions of other professionals. However, if additional guidance is needed, they cannot move forward without obtaining an informed basis for the decision. I often get questions in my office, and I will tell folks, you really need to seek guidance through your legal counsel. And if Howard was here, or Kim Croyle, or any one of the attorneys, they would all tell you the cost of that phone call is nothing in comparison what it would be if you had to deal with something either through a grievance decision or through a circuit court, some type of civil action, whatever it might be. And I've been in Superintendent Hiley's in his seat before. And it's a fine line. Do I make that phone call? You know, that phone call could be expensive. It could be, let's say, $150 for a 30-minute phone call. An email might be $250. If it's a real complex issue and it's going to maybe an hour or maybe 2 hours, and we've been there, that's happened. So you kind of try to pick and choose, you know, is there another way I can get that answer? But in reality, it has always been, in my experience, worth the phone call. Something that like I told you I've done is I memorialized that phone call. So, because I can tell you, folks I've worked with and as Superintendent Ritchie County, we would always laugh because here we are, same 2 people, April Hott, who's the superintendent. Some would come up and she'd come over and we've already got this answer. But even between the 2 of us, we couldn't exactly remember, but one of us would find that email and make sure we go back to that same response. But I think that's what's really trying to be emphasized in duty of care. When you get to that point, it's necessary. You should not feel, okay, we should not use taxpayer money to make that call. In a way, it's very prudent to do that. Duty of loyalty. Board members must always place the school district's interest above their own. They cannot engage in self-dealing, nor can they usurp a school district opportunity for their own financial benefit. And we can all say, well, that's not going to happen. But it does happen from time to time. Maybe not purposefully. I mean, we're all humans, right? And you're out in the public and, you know, they see Larry at Walmart or you're at the football game, Mr. Shreves or Andy, wherever it might be. It could be in the doctor's office. Hey, I heard. Or, you know, I got this problem and I think you should do this. You're human. You should be able to listen to those conversations. but how you respond, that's going to be, that's what's really going to be the level of measure for you as a board member. Because we know the last thing on this that we keep hearing so often is outside of a board meeting, you have no more authority than a person on the street. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. And depending on how the person says it, it can sound like good advice or it can sound pretty derogatory, right? I mean, think about it. If I looked at you and said, Diana, you don't have any, you're a board member, but you don't have any authority outside of the guy out walking on the street tonight. And it could be a doctor, a lawyer, it could be the pipe fitter, electrician, it could be the school cafeteria manager, it could be the football. In a way, that sounds like, well, geez, why did I run for Board of Education? I mean, you know what? I mean, there is a line there. But recently, and I've heard Mr. Sufer say this so often, I was going to show you, I've now added it to our website, and something he explained to me, I think we need, as an association, do a better job for you guys with, is a statement that he said. And it's actually not his. It was from a grievance decision, Shin versus Board of Education, and then it includes a lot of different other places, other grievances that they had cited, Napier versus Lincoln County Board of Education. But it says the Board of Education of a school district is a corporation created by statute with functions of a public nature expressly given and no other, and it can exercise no power not expressly conferred or fairly arising from necessary implication and in no other mode than prescribed and authorized by statute. Now, that sounded like a lot, so I thought, you know what, I'll just make sure I give them a copy in a nice paper too and everything, so you can keep this, because I think if I were in your shoes, I would refer back to this on any complicated decision. So I can summarize this in that, so, for examples, Mr. Strode decides he'd just like to go out and visit some schools. You know, he's really, do I need to sign in? Do I got to go in the front door? You know, can I get a key card, go in the back door, just go walk around, maybe talk to some teachers, observe some classrooms. You know, I heard Mr. Brown was a great teacher, so I'd have to go watch him teach. But then again, you know, the Jeff Davis guy is just really not a very good teacher. I like to go and see what's going on in his classroom. But we'll hear somebody say, but as a board member, you don't have that authority to do that because, what's it say? Outside of a meeting, you don't have any other authority. But actually, what we have to understand is, in West Virginia school law, board members are granted certain authorities. And I'm going to go over a lot of places where that exists. But if it's not codified in code, you don't have that authority. It's not that what does the law say I can't do. It's that the law doesn't say you can do it. Because if we functioned in that world, that anybody in the community, not even from your own community, anybody from anywhere could walk into our schools and really have, you know, carte blanche access to whatever's going on in the school system. So it really defines that narrow purpose that board members have. And that's a hard one. I mean, it really is. So can I, as a board member, can I schedule a meeting with a teacher that maybe is not happy, or the coach, or maybe the cook just thinks they need to have, you know, a new bun warmer in there because the one that they've used for years isn't working and the child nutrition director won't buy that for them? No, I can't go in, just sit down and see if I can solve that problem for them, because that would mean it has to be expressly authorized by statute. And there are, in some regards, there's your focus is, or your authority is very, very narrow. But in some regards, actually, when you get down to some of the code, there's a lot that you're responsible for, especially around personnel. And I'll get to that here in a minute. But the other piece that we really stress in our manual is in Chapter 4. And that comes back to the chain of command. And this works forwards and backwards. So respecting the chain of command is crucial for maintaining efficient and effective operations within a school board. Here are some guidelines for board members to uphold the chain of command. First of all, understand the hierarchy. Familiarize yourself with the organization structure of the school board, including the roles and responsibilities of various positions. This will help you understand how the chain of command functions. Respect the superintendent's role. The superintendent is typically the highest ranking official in the district and serves as a primary link between the school board and the staff. Recognize their authority and expertise in managing day-to-day operations. So often, when you look in state code, and we're going to go over it briefly, because I know that I don't know how much time I have with you, but I want to be respectful of your time. But almost everywhere you go in state code where it says school board, either right after it, it says superintendent, or right before it says superintendent. The two are interlinked in so many ways. The next thing on page 2 at the top, communicate through appropriate channels. When you have questions, concerns, or suggestions, follow established communication channels. Start by discussing issues with the superintendent, a designated point of contact within the administration. Avoid directly contacting staff members without going through the proper channels. And you know, some would say is that really trying to tie the hands of board members or the superintendent? Why couldn't I go to another employee? Maybe it's a director or the personnel director or the treasurer. So it would be like the boss's boss coming in and making a suggestion. You know, it could be all in good faith, and maybe it's a great idea, but maybe it's not. And then when it's not, well, they are a board member. How do I tell the board member no? That puts them in a very precarious situation. So again, that's probably one of those areas, because it's not expressly authorized, that's a limit the board does not have. So chain of command. Board meetings as a platform. Utilize board meetings as a platform. Discuss policy matters, provide guidance, receive updates. Avoid micromanaging or interfering in the daily operations of the district. Instead, focus has to be on role setting and setting policies and overseeing the superintendent's performance. Now, as a superintendent, and I'm sure Mr. Hiley and we probably, if we were breaking bread someday, we could sit there and say, we're the only will and pleasure employee in the whole county. That's tough. And the other piece of that dynamic is that every 2 years, that complexity changes. So building that relationship piece, especially as people become transitioning into a new board seat. Here we are again, we got a primary election or a general election tomorrow, and we've got 6 counties that are going to have new board members. And so they're going to go through another transition, just having gone through one in a recent primary election. Respect the expertise of the staff. Recognize school administrators, teachers, and other staff members who have specialized knowledge, experience in their respective areas. Trust their expertise and defer their professional judgment in operational matters. And this goes back to that chain of command, because if you think there's something maybe that isn't going the way it should, where do you fall back at? It would be the superintendent. And that could be handled formally in a meeting. You know, Superintendent Hiley, you know, we've heard some concerns. I don't know if you guys have, I didn't look on your agenda, a section where you have board member concerns or comments or something. You know, concerns with, I don't know, I don't want to give an example that could get misconstrued, but whatever it might be. And you could, you know, first of all, you don't want to ask Mr. Hiley to respond immediately. You know, could you prepare for us at the next board meeting a brief report, just get us up to speed on this project that we're hearing that we might be behind schedule. That's reality, but that would be an example. But using the staff and the superintendent to get those answers. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the superintendent works for the Board of Education. And that's, there's going to be a section I'm going to go over real briefly that actually, until I started working on that handbook, I never knew it was in code. Provide clear direction expectations, clearly communicate your expectations to superintendent or staff members. during meetings or through official channels. You guys can go individually. Mr. Stroh could, have a concern, call Mr. Hiley on the phone, say, do you have a few minutes for me this morning? I got a concern I'd like to just discuss with you. It may not be something that needs to go to the full board, but if you have a few minutes, we could sit down and talk. That's well within your rights. There's nothing in statute that would prohibit that, or anything that would be a concern with the Ethics Act or the Open Meetings Act. Confidentiality, understanding certain information discussed in executive session is not protected by law. People struggle when they hear that. Why in the world do you go into executive session then? Because there are certain matters that in the code tells us exactly what they are. But technically, by the Ethics Act, it's not protected. But you have to maintain confidentiality, because where the Ethics Act may not apply, there are other laws that you might be violating by breaching that information if you go out in the public and speak about it. Especially things that were discussed about legal matters, personnel action, things like that. So it may not necessarily be protected by the Ethics Act, but it could be a violation somewhere else in statutes. You have to be very careful with that. Address concerns through appropriate channels. If you have concerns or issues regarding the superintendent's performance or the operations of the districts, address them through the established procedures, such as executive sessions, as scheduled evaluations. Avoid discussing confidential matters publicly and engaging in disputes that undermine the chain of command. One of the things as an administrator that I've always, and even in my role now as an executive director, you don't want to usurp someone else's authority, because it starts to diminish that in the public's eye. Well, I don't need to go talk to the principal. I'm just going to go straight to the superintendent. I know as a superintendent, I get a call from a parent about a child. The first thing I say, well, have you talked to your child's teacher? We had a conference. It didn't go so well. Well, have you spoken with the principal? No, actually, I haven't had a chance to. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to let him know that you're going to reach out, but please contact him first. If you don't feel satisfied after you've had that conversation, then please feel free to call me. I'm sure, Mr. Hiley, I'm sure you do that already. Seek consensus within the board. When making decisions, taking actions, the board strive for consensus among the members. I think the key word in that is strive for it. There's 5 people aren't always going to agree, and that's okay. I think it's important sometimes to question things, not necessarily to be the one that's right, but to make sure we're getting it right. And if that results in us reaching consensus, then that's a win-win for the system. But if we don't get to that point, I have a right to vote as an individual board member how I see fit. But when we look at the counties that are really having a lot of success, and I'm going to measure that by academic performance, is where you see consistency in the board and you see consistency in the leadership. When those two marry together and they are doing very, very well, we see student achievement climbing pretty quickly. And that's not always an easy thing to accomplish, but it does need to be the goal. Now, trust me, we're not going to go through the rest of this document. I wanted you to just have it. Personnel law. So this is all in Chapter 9. Now, I'm at the bottom of 2. I'm not going to read that. I'm going to go to page 3. And there's a few things that I'm going to point out because I think it's important to hear. 18A27. This is a big personnel. This is all around assignment, transfer, promotion, demotion, suspension, recommendation to dismissal of school personnel by superintendent, preliminary notice of transfer, hearing on the transfer, and proof required. But the very first letter that falls underneath that, letter A, the superintendent, subject only to approval of the board, may assign, transfer, promote, demote, or suspend school personnel and recommend their dismissal pursuant to the provisions of this chapter. Nobody else. Nobody else. All falls on the superintendent's lap and under his responsibility and authority. But it's always subject to board approval. There's very few things in personnel law that aren't subject to board approval. And if you were to go down through all this next several, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, all these personnel laws, you will see words like shall and may, and it'll be all tied to the superintendent and to the board. And sadly, guys, I'll be honest, back when they passed some of the personnel law, especially on the appointment of teaching personnel, it says there's the matrix, there's the factors that have to be considered. But the last two says if the faculty senate and the principal agree, the board shall approve. And actually, it doesn't even say that the superintendent has to recommend it, but it says you shall approve. If they don't agree, then it goes back to the matrix. And then the principal makes a recommendation to the superintendent. He makes a recommendation to you guys, but you have some latitude, but you gotta be very, very careful when you don't accept that recommendation. Now, how do we make that determination where that's going to be considered legal or could be questioned? And that's later. If you come down to under 18A27A statewide job bank, I want to include this because I know this was a point of contention at one point. In all fairness to Mr. Hiley and the team here in Tyler County, everybody in the state, all 55 of us at that time, would have liked to have done just what Mr. Hiley did. I'm just being honest with you. We all struggled with how in the world to translate what we do at a local level to that job bank. It's tough, and especially when there are so many pieces of it that it's just not professional. It's service, and it's actually extracurricular. It's a lot. And the purpose behind that job bank was for the state to have some way to accurately measure what the vacancies look like. Now, I know we're live streaming today, but I'll say it, now we have that data and we're still really struggling to fill those positions. Now the question is, now that we have that data, what's going to happen with our legislature in trying to help us address all these shortages? And it's getting worse each day, and I'm not telling you something you don't already know. Even in Tyler County, with all the resources that you have, and you think about some of the counties that don't even have an excess levy, and it started out, we couldn't get teachers and bus drivers. Now we can't get classroom aides and cooks and custodians. I'm hearing counties that are having contract labor out for custodial work because they can't find folks. But it's clear, under B, each county board of education shall provide the information listed in section A of the section to the state bank board, and the information shall be included in the statewide job bank in a proper manner. It was conceptually, I understood why the legislature put it in place because they needed to have that data. It's a little disappointing we're not a little further along in how they're using that information. Over on page 4, and this is a big page, and you'll see the ones that I've underlined. These are the ones that are really important. Later in April, you're going to have to approve voluntary transfer of school employees to vacant position. No, this is about vacant positions. Did you have any after the 20th day? You're one of the few lucky counties, because a lot of counties had to deal with that. And there's some folks will get really upset. So let me back up. You had X amount of teachers at the elementary school, Borman Elementary School. All these kids transferred out for whatever reason, the Hope Scholarship or homeschool, whatever it might be. But now we've got this class, there's 3 teachers and we only need 2. So we have somebody that could, we could move them. And over here we have a vacant position and you can actually transfer that person. There's a legal process to this and it actually details that out. But we've been getting a lot of phone calls back in the first couple months of school going, well, how did they do that? They didn't post that position. Well, the law addresses that. So you get a pass on page 4. If you thought we were going to read that, that would have been a long one. Over on page 5, 18A212A, statement of policy and practice for county boards and school personnel to minimize possible disagreement and misunderstandings. That's a mouthful. Let me take a minute to read the last 3 words. Disagreement and misunderstandings. I don't know I bet if I surveyed 100 administrators. I don't know if anyone's ever read this section. And I included it because it came up on my search this week when I was preparing, or this past week. The effective and efficient operation of public schools depends upon the development of harmonious and cooperative relationships between county boards and school personnel. I never knew that. I had no idea that that was in code. And we go back to that concept of trust and functioning in a cohesive manner. And you just can't will it. You just can't say, well, we're going to do this. Yeah, how do you get there? I'm going to give you an opinion here in a minute, and you probably didn't bring me up here for that, but it's going to be free. So each group has a fundamental role to perform in the educational program, and each has certain separate, distinct, and clearly defined areas of responsibility as provided in chapters 18 and 18A of this code. Each has certain separate and distinct and clearly defined areas of responsibility. So I think it's alluding to, it has a lane. You got to stay in that lane. When we start to trickle over either way, that starts to be problematic. Further down below on number 1 under letter B, county boards subject to the provisions chapter 18 of this code and the policies and rules of the state board are responsible for the management of schools within their respective counties. The powers and responsibilities of county boards in setting policy and in providing management are broad but not absolute. The school personnel shares responsibility for putting into effect the policies and practices approved by the county board that employs them, and the school personnel also have certain rights and responsibilities provided in statute and in their contracts. So that opinion on my side of this is that this is really about structure. You know, if we have this opening and this is how we post, it's up for 5 days, committee's established, we conduct the interviews, the next available board meeting, a recommendation is made, and the board approves. And every time that same type of position comes about, there is that same structure. And everybody understands this is how this is going to go. When you start going in all kind of different paths, then people start to go, well, why that one, but not this one? And then that starts to build mistrust. And then that cohesive system no longer functions well. And I think that's what this is all about. It talks about minimizing possible disagreement, misunderstanding. You know, people, from my experience, they want to follow the rules as long as they apply to everybody and consistently. I mean, it may not be fair because the law isn't always fair. Service personnel law, for those of you coming to the training on the 16th, you're going to find out. I mean, over here on professional, there's all these factors, and over here it's seniority and evaluation and one other little thing that really never comes into play. Well, that's not equal, but it's fair because that's what the law says. It's fair. Am I making any sense in that? And what I'm trying, you know, guys, I've worked here 23 years, and I've worked in 5 different counties, different roles in the last 17. And I can't tell you how many times I relied on my time in this county. I can't tell you how many times I bragged about some of the accomplishments. You guys don't remember the spit tune. Shane, you might be able to find it somewhere here, but back in the old CTBS days when we took our state test, I think it was Hank Baraki was state superintendent. He created this cup, and whoever had the highest test score for that year, your name and the name of the county and the year, it was embossed on the cup, and you got to keep it for that year until the following year. I can't tell you how many times we referenced that. We had that cup in our board office, which was over there, I believe. It's not as nice as this place. That cup was probably worth more than our building was at that time. But the reputation that Tyler County's had and the phenomenal administrators, this has kind of been the beacon across the northern panhandle for decades. I've been out and about, so I know what it looks like in other places. You guys should be able to wear that pretty proudly. I've worked with some amazing administrators here that's done great work, and many of them are still in the county working. The last thing on page 5, number 7, all official enforceable policies of county board must be written and made available to its employees. So it's put in there, and it's saying if it's requiring it to be available to all its employees, obviously they're saying that those policies are important. And making sure that your county policies are current and up to date and reflect the vision of the board, which may or may not change over time. But if those policies aren't revisited periodically, then that becomes a fallacy for the system. When you do that in sequential order, and I think, did you guys end up adopting or go with Neola?
Yes.
So they're gonna start working with your county. And hopefully they'll be able to help you guys tailor some of the policies that are specific to Tyler County. But that will help because there's a constant update that comes each legislative session. So they do a pretty good job at making sure your policies are up to date. Over on page 6, 1847A, employment, promotion, transfer of professional personnel qualifications. Only gonna look at A. County Board of Education shall make decisions affecting the filling of vacancies in professional positions of employment on the basis of the applicant with the highest qualifications. Last 2 words are the key words. Highest qualifications. Now they tell us what those look like over here on the professional side, and on service personnel side, they tell us. Where it gets a little ambiguous is those extracurricular assignments and coaching assignments and things like that. Who determines what those qualifications are? And this is something that I took out of right in our manual. Nothing in statute requires the use of a matrix or that interviews are conducted, but in almost all cases, counties do both. Some create their own matrix for some of those outside of those professional positions or for service. Some of those maybe a matrix would be beneficial, but there is a process. The matrix is often used as evidence that all 9 factors were considered. As well, interviews are often used for the factor 9. Others measures or indicators upon which relevant qualifications applicant may be fairly judged. I'm going to give you, you'll get this before anyone else. This is what Bulls Race will be using next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday. And it outlines everything for professional and service personnel and how you consider applicants. I'm not going to go through this, but I thought it would be helpful to have. So when you get a recommendation, and if you go down through here and maybe you have a question about who's being recommended, the easiest question under professional would be to say, did the interview committee, did they follow the required 9 factors? And Mr. Holly would say, well, in this case, the faculty senate and the principal agreed, so only 9 and 10 actually are relevant. Therefore, this evening, the board shall employ the recommended candidate. They determine those who had the highest qualifications. Same thing over on the right side when filling service personnel. 3 things: seniority, qualifications, and evaluation of past service. And if they follow those 3, then really the board, unless there's something that maybe no one else knows that would disqualify that candidate, but you would have to be able to prove that they are not the highest qualified applicant. Questions? Ms. Byers?
I understand completely.
So go ahead and move past page 7, because that's that long one. That page, we're going to go clear over to page 9. Under Q, midway down the page, openings in established, existing, or newly created positions shall be processed as follows. I'm not going to read this, But I've had questions from some of you, well, what are we required to do? At a minimum, you're required to post for 5 days. Positions have to be filled in a certain number of days. When can you repost? Is it legal to repost? A professional position, you can repost. If there are fewer than 3 applicants, qualified applicants, obviously if there are no qualified applicants. Well, what if it's somebody that's permit eligible? Well, no, because actually you may not know that until actually they go through the process. I wanted to point this out because there's been questions about, well, when can we do this? Let's say it's a position that's the board feels it's no longer needed. So we accept the resignation of Jim Brown and we say, you know what, we no longer feel that we need a standalone transportation director. We think we should look at possibly absorbing that position within the central office. Actually, the board could possibly make that determination. Ultimately, it's going to be the superintendent's responsibility or goal to come back with a plan that's going to say maybe we might want to rethink this. This is a huge position with all these responsibilities. I'm kind of going on and on, but you get my gist in that. Over on page 10, very top, it goes on, if one or more applicants under all postings for a vacancy meets qualifications listed in the job posting, the successful applicant to fill the vacancy shall be selected by the board within 30 working days. So what if we're so busy and, but now we think we really should go ahead and repost this. As long as you can get it filled within the 30 days, you'll be all right. Well, what if the board says, you only had 2 applicants. We think you should, well, we only have 6 days left. That means we'd have to have a board meeting on a Sunday. There's really, how would we get this in and approved by you? It might not be possible. So it's important to know what all these little nuances are. But remember what we started out with. Trust the staff. I mean, they're the ones that do this all the time. They've got checklists. They've got timelines. They understand where they're at with these positions. At the bottom, under 18A4A, employment term and class title service, I'm just going to, what's bolded in red, set of factors used filling service personnel vacancies, seniority, qualifications, evaluation, past service. And now you can reference that handout. Over on page 11, at some point in time, Mr. Hiley will come to you, Mrs. Feldmeyer, and ask you you have to go back through and do reclassification of all service personnel. Maybe no changes from the year before, but you'll end up having to approve that. That's a normal practice. For those of you that are new, I didn't know if you were aware of that. I don't think it's come up in any of our trainings. Skip page 12, come over to page 13, 18A416 extracurricular assignments. Don't confuse this with the newest one when we have the supplemental duty positions. That was the new legislation this past year. This is what we've always had in place. The assignment of teachers and service personnel to extracurricular assignments shall be made only by mutual agreement of the employee and the superintendent or designated representative, subject to board approval. Extracurricular duties shall mean, but not limited to, any activities occur at times other than regularly scheduled working hours, which include instructing, coaching, chaperoning, escorting, provides support services, or caring for the needs of students which occur on a regular scheduled basis. In red, note, county boards of education have the discretion to adopt a policy establishing the factors to be used in determining the qualified candidate for extracurricular assignments. It's not required, don't have to. I would say if we surveyed all 55 counties, we might be split right down the middle. The superintendent, the personnel director, it might look different for an athletic coaching position versus an academic coaching position. But the goal, the responsibility is for the recommendation to come to you, which based on the applicant, that has the highest qualifications. And if you get a grievance or a dispute or whatever it might be, whether it's a sanction, whatever, so we filed something in circuit court, it would always come back to, did that applicant have the highest qualifications? And that's the burden on both sides. The applicant would have to prove that they did, and if you didn't accept that one, you would have to be able to prove that they didn't. Notice it doesn't say the word more in there. It just says highest qualifications. There's some discretion in there, isn't there? Just by the way it's phrased. But I'll go back to, I would not tell you, I'm not saying you need to have a board policy on that. But when you think about consistency and operation and making sure you have the trust of the folks in the community, in the school community, maybe a policy that defines what this looks like, and then we're consistent in how we follow it, kind of puts any of the rumors or the disbelief or, kind of squashes those rumors from ever happening, because they follow the rules. These are what the steps say, and this is how they make those decisions. Over on page 14, rejecting superintendent's recommended applicant to fill position. I just want to make sure you had this. This is actually a section in our manual, and I wanted you to have that information. There are certain times when it is feasible, but not always. The school board's authority to reject the superintendent's nominees found in chapters 18 and 18A of the West Virginia Code. After a superintendent makes his or her recommendation, school board will often ask if there's a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation. When no such motion is made, or maybe the motion fails for a lack of a second, or by vote of the board, the motion dies, the recommendation of the superintendent is rejected. How do you handle that? Upon the rejection of the superintendent's nominee, the superintendent is required to nominate another applicant at a time. The school board may direct. Some school boards expect the superintendent to present the nominee at the same board meeting. Others may instruct the superintendent to nominate other applicants at a future meeting. In any case, for the position to be filled in a legal manner, the superintendent will have to nominate another candidate. So, any questions on, and there's more information tied to the code, but I didn't want to go into that with too much detail. Over on page 15, who can remove a personnel action item from the board meeting agenda? Only the superintendent of schools. Only the superintendent of schools has exclusive authority to remove a personnel item from the Board of Education meeting agenda. Typically, such a removal is communicated by the superintendent shortly before the board addresses personnel matters. That's when they could do that. I will tell you, and I've seen where in some counties, there are some counties that when the board meets, they approve the agenda. It's not required, but it's a formality they go through. And at that time, the superintendent says, yes, I would recommend that the board approve the agenda as posted, with the exception at this time, I would like to remove items A, B, and C out of the personnel section. Or it could be something else where maybe it's a contract or a bid that was awarded. Maybe there's for some reason, there's a need to pull it from the agenda. The superintendent has that exclusive authority to do that. The other one under West Virginia Ethics Act, this will probably take us pretty close to being finished, and we'll see what questions you might have. Once a governing body, 2 or more members of a public agency have the authority to make decisions or recommendations to the public agency on policy or administration is considered a governing body. So if you guys are on some other county committee somewhere else, not tied to public education, 2 of you could participate in that. But the second the conversation becomes about, or you know that it's going to come about, to something involving the school system that might have to come to the full board, you would have to have an agenda for that meeting. So the number's 2. A meeting covered by the act is convening a quorum of a governing body or subcommittees in order to make a decision to deliberate. When a quorum of a governing body discusses matters that would require official action by the governing body, then this is a meeting. If this discussion takes place outside the confines of a public meeting, whether in person, by telephone, email, or telecommunication means it's an illegal meeting. So I can't, so Katrina can't text Larry and Andy and say, hey, Shane wants to do this at the next meeting. I apologize, Superintendent Hiley. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what. I used to be really good at that, and I apologize. And she can't do that. If you guys respond, she just conducted a meeting outside, and it's a violation of the Ethics Act. What gatherings are not meetings subject to the Open Meetings Act? First line, general discussions among members of a governing body or committee on issues of interest in the public in a social, educational, training, informal, ceremonial, or similar setting, so as long as there's no intent to conduct public business or for the discussion to lead to official action. Yes, you can ride in a car together. Yes, you can sit beside each other at a football game or a concert. Pleasant County's going to have a legislative luncheon here in December. Their board members get invited, and they come and they'll be speaking about concerns to the legislators that attend. They can do that. They're all 5 there. Now they can't. The group can't be discussing on something that they would bring to a meeting, but they can function in that manner. I'm not going to get into too many more things on page 16, but it just talks about meeting agendas and when they can be amended, limitations on delegations, etc. I watched one of your meetings here recently, and that's the hardest thing for folks to understand because I understand the rules. Can't discuss anything that's not on the agenda. But boy, it's really difficult to manage sometime when they've really got something that's really pressing and heartfelt. And they share it with you in their 5 minutes that they get, and then you just have to say thank you for attending. I did hear Mr. Sufer say at a meeting, it is okay for one of you guys to say to the superintendent, maybe this is something we need to put on our next agenda for us to discuss. And maybe you have that in your county policy that says by a vote of 3 members, so maybe Diana has to make a motion or you can do it informally. But whatever that process is, that's always helpful. I think it gives confidence to the folks that show up that you're listening. It's just unfortunate the laws say you can't actually discuss it. Obviously, Ms. President Byers, one meeting I watched, you guys went into executive session, did an excellent job identifying which one of the exceptions you cited in the code and went through the proper process. But I've included just because it was part of the information. The last thing on page 18, duty of confidentiality. Committee on Open Governmental Meetings holds the Open Meetings Act, does not make information discussed during executive sessions confidential because executive sessions are discretionary. And the Act does not state the executive session communications are confidential. Other rules and laws, however, may create a duty of confidentiality. And I've kind of alluded to it earlier. But if you ever need to come back to it and reference that, you'll have that in writing. And that's actually right out of the Ethics Act. So it's a duty of confidentiality versus what we talked about in executive session is protected because it's not.
So you're saying specific things that are said in executive session can be confidential, but what you've discussed in there possibly isn't.
I hate hypotheticals.
Well, it's so
I'm
hard.
a OCD, black and white. I love the law. Arts and crafts. I'm not good at creating things on the fly here. So, what would be a good? So, you guys go. Geez, what would it be? you know, we didn't hire so-and-so because they had really bad evaluations, because they, what else would it be that, you know, when they worked in another county, they got in trouble with such and such, which is probably protected under personnel laws. You can't go out and share that in public. But, you know, could, you know, Mr. Thomas say, you know, Mr. Strode said he just didn't like Brown because he was short. He didn't understand how Brown could be a head boys basketball coach when he's 5'7". And can you believe Scott? He just should have never said that about Mr. Brown. And he said that right in executive session. That was wrong. I mean, we could go there, I guess. That'd be an example. I tell you, it does happen. And here's what's really problematic, folks. And this has never happened here in Tyler County. But hypothetically, could folks be sharing, some folks share information through a text message before board members even get home. They could be, I've known that to happen. I mean, it's a duty of confidentiality. Should you be sharing that? What's it going to create? Mistrust. I'm going to go back to that one page. It talks about functioning as a cohesive group and how the board should manage their business. That's just not good business. It just does not create a climate of trust. The other side of that, guys, I think for board members, it puts an awful lot on you as a board member, because all I'm going to do is, you know, I'm going to figure out which one of you guys that I need to call. And that makes it very difficult on you. I worked with a gentleman one time. He took every phone call and answered every message he got. And in about 3 months into his tenure, he was like, I'm just going to quit, because he told me he didn't know how to stop all the phone calls and the text messages. I think he ended up getting a new cell phone number, to be quite honest with you, because it got so much. So I don't know if I've helped you. It's a good county, historically a great county. Academic achievement has always been, people always look to Tyler County to say, what's that little county back in the day that had the little excess levy? I mean, we didn't have a nickel to shine most days, but we always were the cream of the crop. And actually, you guys are holding that tradition. Where are you guys sitting at right now, Mr. Holly? You're top 15, right? Top 10. Top 10. Going well. And that needs to be your message. So what questions might I answer for you? Is there something that I've not covered? More than anything, I wanted you to have this. So I'll be disappointed if you don't keep it, don't throw it away. And if all else, let's say, you know, one of you guys getting a point, you start to ask a question, somebody pull a card out and say, Board of Education of a school district is a corporation created by statute, functions of a public nature expressly given and no other. Do we have this power? Do we have this authority should we be going down this road? And if you can't answer yes to it, the law doesn't give you the authority to know that you shouldn't. And I really hope, I'm going to try to get this to be kind of our mantra as far as our association. I think it'll help us. May not always agree with it, but it is the law. So.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We really appreciate it.
It's really my pleasure. When you go look through that, and if you want, I'll send it to you in Word, do a word search. How many times it says superintendent and board? And they always come up one right after the other. So you guys have to be in lockstep, so appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Come back to Tyler County.
They'll be going over some of this on the Saturday meeting.
Quite a bit.
That's what I thought.
So, you know, I try to fill these based on, you know, timeliness and level of need. And then the one again in that first week in May has got a lot of other key issues that I think, I mean, the winter conference is going to be outstanding. But when you really get down to the brass tacks of the law, those mid-year and end-of-year trainings really focus on that. And that was done purposefully, so.
That's great.
Hope it works for you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
will. Thank you
Appreciate
very
your time.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I was between you and getting dinner. I don't know you, but I think you're the other guy with the suit
Mr.
on.
Reimer.
He doesn't recognize me. That's
You
okay.
know him.
Patrick Reimer.
You have to ask the superintendent.
Man, we're all getting older.
That's right.
Jeez,
That's right.
Pete.
Yes.
No, well, I remember when you were, yeah, I'm the only one that's getting older. I'm leaving.
Okay, so, we are on to E, presentations, and it's the new elementary school with Mr. Reimer from McKinley.
Need a minute to set up here.
He's done this before, so.
Heat on down there. Be there.
Something tells me this may not work.
Why?
It's not plugged in.
Figure it out.
To do this, I don't need internet, so.
Yep. Should take it right through.
We have a state champion, huh, in Tyler County.
Yes, we do.
Kimball's not here, but congratulations.
Yeah, she's,
Great.
Seriously, I am glad to hear that if you guys have any problems, you can't approach me directly. You have to go through Shane.
You just tell him that, too.
football.
That's what it's been.
They are 6-3.
Ah.
You just had to hold your mouth right now.
Yeah. That'll do. That last game. We'd have to win it, yeah. I think if we win, we host. If we don't, then. It's not tough. Nah, it's not them. Like, you can't get much farther than stay in West Virginia.
I know.
Go to Tuck Valley. I didn't see how it, and there's a good chance I think there's a good chance they could get beat.
CMI, come on, here's.
Yeah, that's his new signal.
I just got
That's why
Okay.
I was going by.
It was up. Your son's picture was up there. Then it went away.
Picture of a little boy, sweet little boy.
Look at the numbers. I gotta play Sherman either way.
You broke it.
Well, that's what everybody told me is
I'm looking for Sherman. I don't know about
either Meadowbridge or Sherman win or
those
lose.
points are hard. And I'll tell you something else. Change. Valley was gonna have a 9 games. They get the ball.
It's coming.
Well, they no contest, so they so it didn't because it wasn't into. I assume it wasn't to their advantage to count that 9th game or 10th game.
Merritt, do you two want to come up here so you can see?
Question. Now where does Tyler play volleyball?
I don't know yet. I'm gonna go over that here in a minute.
Did they win? Or no, they still.
Oh,
That's
they
tomorrow.
they brought St. Mary's back in again.
That's a mess. It is.
I'm
Kidding me.
I'm
It is-
confused.
It is.
Do
It is a
what?
mess.
Oh my goodness.
That's why my phone's been dinging this whole time.
Yes.
It's not, huh?
Yeah, I just.
They're not going to training?
I'll try to explain it to you here in a minute. After
Oh my
Patrick's done.
gosh,
Sad.
Oh, and two and they're back.
That's sad.
that's awful.
Oh, it's beyond awful.
It's sad. That whole.
I think I'm ready to go if you, we're still,
ready.
we're waiting on Andy.
Yeah.
I think I can get through the about code and state code, so.
Well, that'd be good.
What about building code though?
Oh, jeez.
Over there. This is all fun stuff. We're not.
Yeah.
So, let me ask, well, I'll wait till after you get started and after. Is this the building itself, or just dates and times?
Steal my thunder here? Mr. Hiley, what was on the agenda?
Hey, listen, new school, where's boss?
We're seeing. I'm gonna give you a little preview.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Come on, Andy. So, let's just kind of move on here. So, you know, this is just a rehash. We went through this last time we came in. You know, we're firmly in this section here, right? This is kind of where we're at, like, you know, kind of, you know, the school coming up on the school closure process, which we're gonna talk about just at a high level tonight. Also, you know, in the conceptual design, the kind of like, you know, which is not a requirement of the school closure process, but in conversations with Mr. Hiley and administration, thought, yeah, it makes sense, you know, to give some people some idea of what this could be in addition to just, you know, a written document like this, you know, for purposes of state code. So that's the overall kind of timeline, and, you know, we're on schedule. It's just that we went through our last meeting. So just focusing in on that school closure process, you know, because Mr. Hiley asked if we could give you the actual dates, just so everybody knows what's coming up here. So, you know, these are important, not just dates, but deadlines. And if anything is critical in this process, when it comes to, you know, success, meeting the deadlines is essential. So the first step in the process is there's 10 business days prior to the posting. This has to go to the State Department. We have to have a CEFP amendment and an impact statement. As you know, the administration's been working on it. We get a work session this past week, you know, just kind of putting that together. That works backwards. So what we did is we worked backwards from the desired closure hearings, which coincide with the first couple meetings in the new year for you guys. So that works out to 21st. That means everything this month, 21st, has to be to the state board, and the CFP needs to be updated through their online platform. Because, you know, we're working towards a Monday date, this is actually kind of the critical date that everything works from, essentially that first hearing date, right? So 30 days prior to that date, 30 calendar days, you have to post, there's several postings that have to be done with the school improvement council with each affected school, you know, that 30-day period prior to that. So that works out as a Saturday. I wish there was a way around it, but holding to a board meeting date, it pretty much has to be that way, because if you say you move to a Monday, then you're less than 30 days prior, and if you move it to a Friday, then well, we could back up this date, but I think we need all the time possible to get to that amendment. So that's why that's a Saturday. And then it's just legal advertisements. It's Class 3 legal advertisement. I won't say what that is, because I said I wouldn't say code. But essentially, it's 3 successive advertisements, 3 weeks, right? So,
Well, I need you to explain to me though, what an advertisement is,
so like in the legal advertisement in the paper.
the paper.
Yeah.
Tyler Star News.
Bonafide. Star News meets the requirement, you know, it's in the readership area, you know, that's more than adequate to advertise, you know, and what you're advertising is that you're holding the closure hearings at this location on this date, at this time. And there's some other things within Department of Policy. You can identify an alternative location or alternative, like a weather date. If you want to put that in there, you can put that in there as well. I think you guys are still chewing on where to hold those, right?
I think we'll have them at the high school, in the high school auditorium.
Yeah. So, because you have to have at least one for each affected school, so you have to have two. You don't have to have it in the affected school, you just have to have it in a place big enough to house. And if it's not big enough, you can move it. That's why I think you have more than enough space there. So that's just the highlighted key dates, so that all works, these advertisements to a closure hearing. That's essentially your first board meeting. So you can, have the closure hearing and then go into your board meeting. That's fine. The second one, because Martin Luther King Day is on Tuesday. That's why it's on Tuesday. And you're not required to take any action on that second night, though you can. But there's several things that have to be done in that process.
So the hearing is the opportunity for people to come speak about each location.
And you could set, you have to have the notice, or essentially the notice available there. We said we recommend having some other stuff, like maybe some ideas of what the school would look like. And you can set time limits, no less
It's
than
5 minutes.
3, I think, or something like that, minutes per you're required to keep a record of all the conversations. You don't have to address them in that meeting. I think you can. I think you give you some leeway, codified leeway, right?
So
But
going-
this is all in state policy.
So going to this here, sir, let's say when it comes to structure in the building, the room size, what you like in that building, are we getting information from the staff of the two elementary schools, sharing
We've actually
as a
done
school?
that. Yeah, that was
A small group, or is everybody involved?
So that was the process of the
I
EdSpec.
truly believe everybody
Yeah.
is.
The EdSpec committees that have had essentially representatives from each of the schools of each department come in, and other members, and they provided their insight into what the school needed, that build out what we call the EdSpec, which is the narrative of the school, what it contains, sizes, and of course you also have state policy too. So you're balancing the two. Between policy 6200 of the state Board of Education's policy, 25, pre-Ks, some other ones out there that you probably would consider. But the primary purpose in that, we have 3 months of planning. EdSpec planning is to facilitate those conversations. So everything you're going to see in the next few slides is us. That's what we think, architects and engineers. We take that written document created by your staff, and we facilitated it with a planner to help them through the process. We take that, and that's what we design from. So essentially, there's the spaces that are in this building are, plus or minus less, 5%, all within like square footage targets. Most of, some of them are all 800 square foot classrooms. That's a little larger than kind of the state minimum, but the desire was to have larger classrooms, and that's what's going to show up in here. We want student success center. We want it here. It talks about not just the numerical value things, but also like how it's supposed to fit within the school. How would that would be part of your notice, right? You will include that spec. I think that's a crucial piece of information for everybody to read. Probably, I would say, even more crucial than any conceptual designs, because if we go back to that, we're just like at the beginning stages,
Right.
of like any kind of
Good.
design,
Good deal.
right? And, there's a lot of time left to work on designs, or we're going to get community input. You're going to get input from the state. There's going to be further conversations with administration, teachers, that whole process. But that EdSpec is that's how it's communicated to the designers.
Okay.
What we want, right? So that, And
So
that, if you haven't had a copy of it, I'm sure that's probably something.
Yeah, it's
that's-
like this thick copy.
It's, it's, I don't know, I've never seen it printed out. It might be that thick printed out. Yeah, I've only seen a digital version of it. It's that thick on my computer. But it's
So
got,
there will be a time when the math teachers from each elementary school might get together, or the social studies, or the
They
English.
already had.
They already have.
But did they go back and tell everybody? Because
Yeah.
I've had some people tell me they don't know what's going on, and
Well, we have to appoint
I-
a committee, you can't have,
So what the
that's what I'm
Everybody to
saying.
school
Did
at
the
one
committee
time.
go back
Yes.
and share with them?
Yes, that was the purpose of having more than one meeting. So they would meet and we would discuss things. But I can't remember the name.
so Rob Pillar
Rob.
facilitated.
They- And so then they would take the ideas back to their school. And we would come back and they'd bring all the other ideas from everybody else who wasn't there on the committee or with us and bring those back. And we did it 3 times to kind of, maybe 4 times.
I didn't say anything
And-
because
And even besides that, then the architects went to both elementary schools and met
Okay.
with people
Each
at each school
Good.
and discussed it with them,
Good.
besides the ones
With each
that were in the
department, we
committee.
would sit down, meeting with each department to kind of go through the information collected. There's a lot of exercises in there, some of it was kind of fun, like building with blocks, where they got to kind of understand like the site and why, certain like the limitations, but also like little modules and classrooms. That's kind of fun. There was a visual exercise.
that's
We
really neat.
posted all kinds of images, and those are in the SPEC, kind of what they captures those exercises. I would highly encourage you to kind of read through that, because it explains the process that was went through. And it was really, that's driven from the teacher, primarily the staff. Community members are included in that, although, participation we have is kind of like, that's how much they want to participate. They were invited. I know we had like, Mr. Weiss was up for one of the ones I attended. He posed some questions, in there, and was there. But that visual learning exercise, there was a whole wall covered with images. This is an example. And that's a very interesting process, because they just go around with dots. And it's like, we like this, red dot, we don't like this. And you get all these dots, and you'll have green dots on the same image as red dots sometimes. And then you talk about it, like, what did you like about this? And you kind of get some insight from, teachers, staff. So not just teachers, we had service personnel there. Who else did we have there, Shane? Probably would be important.
Parents.
Yeah.
We had parents that did come.
Maybe students.
Maybe bus drivers?
Drivers, we did have drivers. I think we had a representation from all service personnel members.
That's good.
Some in the, and then we had a couple business owners that did show up.
Mr. Aiken was.
Yeah.
Some of them went as far as to draw out like their ideal classroom. And I think, sometimes those sketches, some of the exercises were like sketching those things out. And also the guiding principles. The first step is like, what is the guiding principles of like our respect committee to like guide us through this process? And those 5, and they were adaptation of kind of the district's mission statement. Core beliefs, correct. So that's kind of the early steps. That doesn't have to happen before you go through closure hearings, but to me, if you want to have like some validity in what you're proposing, it's nice to be able to do that. Not everybody has the opportunity to go to, because there's some costs associated with that, both internally and externally. Pulling all your teachers out for a day, you probably would have subs, and some of those they were in the evenings. Most
Yeah,
of
but
them.
we paid them to come.
Yeah. So, anything more on these spotlighted timelines or anything in the process? I can keep moving. All right. Unveiling that curtain. As I said, now this is very early in the process. We're still collecting, community input, city input. And then the process of design is not a one and done. So these are the first kind of like iterations as we go through this. But I thought it was, Shane asked if we could share some things, kind of put us on the spot to like really work to get some of you guys to see it. So sometimes a little motivation's good. So we I don't know how much of this you've seen. I think some of this you may have been shared, but this, we talked during the last meeting. It is a challenging site. It necessitates, there's a little flat area, but not, and if anybody remembers back to the construction of this school, it was not necessarily an easy site either. So there's some similarities, but just to orient you in the overall site, like this is the back. The back, almost like the front in some cases, right? And this is the new addition going on, the gymnasium addition. So that's sort of the new entrance into the gym area. So that's where you're at here, parking lot, and then going up on the hill. And really, to take advantage of kind of the topography, this building, is really following the line of the existing contours. We're having to do some heavy excavation, but it's 2 to 1 up this way, and this is almost like a straight cliff once you get to a certain point on this side, right? So we're riding along that ridge line, which made the most sense. We went through several potential schemes with the administration on what they thought what they didn't like, kind of pulled from those. We actually organized a charrette with our entire office. That took your project as a challenge. So we had 35 architects and engineers really spending a day with the challenge of how to approach this. So this is where it's kind of shaken out. I'll get a little bit more into the floor plan, but just to give you some orientation. So this is the new access road, which would come down from 18 towards the what is it, a Marathon, a BP? I'm not sure what it is. Gas station down there, yeah. So, and the idea is that we would have, essentially 3 lanes with a lane that's kind of a queuing lane. If you had like parent kind of queuing, then you have a second lane that would allow buses to just kind of continue through. There's a bus pull-off in the front for bus loading, unloading. And of course, I think the current plan is that would come down and then go through the existing school. That's what's being worked on with transportation. The parent loop turns off to the right, and then we are coming around the back. So this actually is kind of a bypass lane for some parking service access that's in the rear of this. That was an important point brought up in one of our early meetings because we were looking at the challenges of getting large vehicles offloading here, thinking we could do that in off hours and they could coordinate and schedule that in the front. We were told absolutely not. Not going to do that. We need to be able to have, essentially a semi be able to turn around back there. Right. So, that kind of necessitated pushing a little further in that hill, a little taller retaining wall to make that work. It's not bad. I mean, it gives you more space back there, just to make that work. But I think these are the kind of things we want to catch now as we further develop those important things. So you have some staff parking in the rear. This area of the building, as we get into showing the floor plan, is kind of the little ones like pre-KK on this end. This is your central kind of communal activities, gymnasiums, administration over here, and this is an academic portion of the building over here. So the parent drop-off is closest to the younger ones over here. Your main entrance is towards the front, towards Middle Island. Essentially, it's passing down here, and I think you can see a little bit 18 there if the image wasn't quite so faded. So there's adequate space certainly for the pre-KK playground to the rear. Our thoughts is there's some opportunity around the building for some other play areas. That's still to kind of like be developed and decided. It's kind of nice to have it closer to the core academic area. There's ample opportunity to keep going that way, but the reality is if you could see, I mean, this is about 700 feet across, so it starts to become challenging. But there's a direct connection, and the way there is the opportunity for like overflow parking and even along the road here to kind of support the school as well. So we're kind of thinking about that as well. There's any other key points to probably point out in the site plan? I can kind of move. We can always bounce back and forth if you have them. So this is just gives you, this color coding, boy, that's really hard to read. The color coding here, this darker green, that is the space that was in the ed spec for daycare. So, and I think they're still working through how that's going to be managed, but that is adjacent to that student drop-off we look at either. Then we have pre-K in this cyan sort of color, and then kindergarten in the purple. Red is your dining area activities. So our main entrance, comes, or the main entrance bus drop-off, essentially is also a departure point, like right in that dining's common area, a nice big space where kids can kind of come in, depart, so you can be inside when you're doing dismissals, things like that. And then gym areas are in the blue, this lighter blue color, also media center, arts, and your STEAM lab areas are in this blue area. This is the admin space, so that's an important thing, for direct lines of sight over into the bus area or into the drop-off from these spaces. And this is the Student Success Center here in the lighter purple, lavender, I guess. And then as we get, further into the building, this is the hinge to follow the contour. So what happens at the hinge point, we have some of our specials. I think the music area is here, and this is some of the dedicated pull-out space. I think we have, for instance, your speech specials, things like that, where kids are kind of coming from other areas. So we want to get those areas closer to the central, like the gymnasium. So because we may be using those over here in both directions. So those are centered, similar to the admin. As we hit this, what we're calling this hinge point, this is where we become the core academic area for grades 1 through 5. So at this level, at this main entry level, these academic learning communities, as described by the ed spec, which was desired, are the first and second grade on this level. And then if you go up one floor, you go into the third and fourth grade academic communities. And it's essentially just a stacked plan, efficiencies in plumbing and some other things going up. And then if you go down one floor, half of this building is the fifth grade. So as you can see, we're on grade back here because of the topography going up the hill. Similar to the current school out there, it's such it's not, all this is exterior exposed. All the classrooms have windows. We've, tucked in like bathrooms and things along that back into the hillside there, kind of taking advantage of the topography up there. But your fifth grade, some of the other ranges, think about fifth grade, they'd be the most likely to maybe go down to the high school for band or some of those activities. So closer access for them coming directly out. If you need the site plan, it's down a set of stairs and you're in that parking lot. So there's a proximity advantage as well. And plus, you really want your first and second graders probably not traversing stairs. So we try to put those kids all on the same level, with third and fourth up one going essentially up one or down one flight of stairs. And at this grade level, other than going to dining or gymnasium, you're spending most of your time in the classroom. So we felt like that was.
So this school is very close to the high school?
Right behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I'm looking at the BP, and then we come across the bridge, and we have that straight stretch through there.
So if you want to try to understand that, I'll put it back. So here's the school, the existing school.
Okay.
So this is your greenhouses.
Yep.
Right here. This is the road coming up. What you're seeing here is mid-Island 3.
Okay.
So, because if you've been on that hillside, right, it's straight, almost straight. So we are, so there's a couple, I probably should have pointed this out to take
Well, I missed the last presentation you had, so this is all really new to me.
That's right. Well, actually, this is new to all of you. I don't think I've shared any of this with any of you, so don't ask as many questions as you can. So also, this lower road, is traveling this direction. So there's a change in topography. So we have a pretty big wall, on the lower side beyond the fence on this other road that gets down to, like, there's an existing old road logging, it might have been a road at one point in time, but that essentially steps down to, there's 20 so feet down to that elevation. So we're building off of that to this first road, which becomes 2-lane traffic, but as you go through here, it's really all going this way. So that allows us to step up, so we're kind of crowning up, to kind of get you to the things up on the kind of the high point here. And then this traffic is all in this direction. Of course, they converge here, and they converge here in two directions. And then at the rear, we also have the retaining walls to kind of get up to this level as well. And this is an area we've kind of toyed around with. I know that we may do a chiller plant or something on the back there on that hill. But, it's, you continue to work up that hillside as you go up here. So that's that. But as far as the road, this is where, I would be way off the sheet to show you where you're
Is there a
coming across.
bridge to go into it?
Yes, so that's part of the plan. I don't have that on this sheet, but
I was just
this road extends, essentially it pairs the existing, there wasn't a road there access. We come all the way down to 18, then have a large culvert crossing across a small ephemeral stream, and then we're going across Middle Island Bridge. When that was an important need, and that's actually in your CEP, that doesn't need amended, the secondary access road to the school, which I think has been a desire for a long time. And this is, there's been a lot of time, where do you put that? Where do you put it on the other end? This is kind of nice because it's at the high end, you can get away on the high end. So that serves a dual purpose, and I think also helps with some of the flow, although I think they'd like to limit, like, normal, everyday parent traffic, or to come in, go out, not go through the existing school. But then, it does allow bus traffic, or, in off hours. I'm sure it's gonna be used for people coming, from the other end of the county. They're probably gonna turn up and go in the back as well, I'm sure, right?
So with the clear, what you're saying there, what acreage are you looking? I think we purchased, what, 34?
So
I'm
this
just-
is
I'm
the
just curious. as
So
to see.
so here's your property line. So you purchased, I can't answer the exact acreage, I'm sorry, on what we're showing here. I'd have to.
Oh, okay,
I'd
all
have
right,
to check
no
on that.
problem, you come back another
but-
day.
Yeah, we would,
Thank you.
I'd have to get you the actual impacted area, but of course, you owned all this. Owned, I don't think these are not completely accurate to the new lines. And I'd have to, I'd have to be so far out to show you that, I could show you.
Fine.
But we could probably supplement this. I think, one thing I think that would be helpful is that we need to show the entire road, and that would be the scale that we could kind of show property lines. And most of that purchase was related to the road.
Yeah.
That's really related to.
And I believe that road, is that road state map? I hear people say it is, it's
We
shown,
talked
I never looked.
We talked to them and, they didn't have any record of it.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that
Interesting.
it wasn't, there was, old roads that were, county roads that weren't taken over by the state just became derelict roads. The state took all roads, and those that didn't, there were several roads around town. I think we've talked that it certainly would be worthwhile pursuing, talking to them. They're not taking on any new roads now.
Yeah.
That, even if they didn't take on the roads, they would still probably do bridge inspections and things like that, they said in conversations, which I think is important. You guys don't want to be a business maintaining a bridge. But with the right political conversations, just like this is a state road. The state road actually goes around the back and around the front, right? It wasn't that way at the start. With the right, I think with the proper communications, it would be possible that the state, have the state take over some of this. Some of it. Now, they're not gonna pay for the construction.
No. We're not get that lucky.
They're having a hard enough time maintaining the ones they have.
Yeah. They can take it off your hands and leave, I mean, certainly, and even if, I think the conversations, I guess I wouldn't quote me on this, cause they are all informal, but, they would still be amenable to doing some maintenance and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether or not you guys will probably be out there with the snowplow before them. But it's a different amount of road to get up here. I mean, that's why it's never been done, right?
Yeah.
It's been done already, so.
Quite a few dollars.
There's a few bucks in that. Yeah. I think it's money. I think it's a very important thing for for this school.
Yeah, I do too.
Because there is, something happens to that bridge, there's.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we went through most of this. I didn't feel like we needed to go any further into this, to show you, like I said, this is just a repeat going up, down. But, if I were to show you the blow-ups that we make these guys sit through in 2-hour work meeting sessions, we have the square footages of each space and how that actually aligns to the current, and it's just to make sure that we are hitting that ed spec with all the required spaces, like that we are hitting everything and it's included. I'll move on here into something. So there's an idea, what this could look like. This is like looking, at that main entrance, dead on. Now, this is in a drone, you would see it this way, right? But this is a perspective that you're not going to have. But you will see. We hope that we can create some view angles from 18. But at minimum, this gives you an idea of the entire building. And there's some artistic liberty in the background. I told them this looked like Southern California to me. Where the orange grows. That gives you an idea of scale of what we're dealing with the buses. The ideas. There's some nice areas that are covered areas. For entrance and for waiting outside. This is connected, right? This is the dining area, so this would be a covered area for outdoor dining as well, which I think has been something they've been trying to work on at the elementary schools for a while. And then tying one of the material outlets we're working with, are trying to tie it into some of the stuff that's being built on the back, new entrance to the gymnasium as well, so there's some parity between the two buildings. I got a couple of these, so I'll show you a couple. So it's a little close-up view, as you're kind of standing there looking at the main entrance. I think this is going to get larger when we're done with that outdoor dining area for sure. It's sitting within that common space eating. I'm hopeful that we can open up some really nice views looking out across there. It'll be a nice space. And we're trying to work with ideas of some wood, at least wood look to some of the structural elements, and then some of the some stone accents and brick and some materials and more palette of materials. So that's looking at the main entrance. This is if you were kind of at that parent drop off. So this would actually be playground over here if we ever fully developed. We are utilizing some upper roof monitors to bring daylight into the central area. So this is actually right above the gross motor skills area for the pre-K. So to bring some daylighting into that space. I think as we mature that, it's probably going to be maybe not a clear glass, although it is north facing, which isn't bad, but maybe like an obscured glass or something that allows lots of daylight in, but maybe not just clear. But that's not a bad sun angle there as well. But just kind of carrying a smaller idea of some of those entrances. This would be the view if you were driving up the road from the school. So if you're the new road, we're essentially standing on the new road, kind of at the probably pretty close to where it's hitting the parking lot, maybe a little further up the road. So that's what you would see is the academic area, of course, the entrance, down that way. And this is a view. There would actually be a set of, these are early, but there would actually be a set of stairs right here. I showed you that in the site plan. We're probably standing like in the parking lot, right on the edge of the parking lot. This actually is a little deceiving. I don't, at some point, this grass is probably gonna go right to the hillside. That's the hill at the back of the parking lot now. And that's, pretty close to what you would see if you were, at the parking lot between the two buildings. So it is there, I think they are, well-connected, schools. I don't think it's inconceivable that you could use the amenities of both schools. I think that was one of the advantages of why have it on this campus, right? So you have nice fields, you have a nice auditorium, some things in that school that if there's opportunities to share between the schools. I think we're gonna have conversations about other bigger things like mechanical systems that Mr. Weekly wants us to try to figure out how to design to serve both schools and things like that too. So I think there are those are conversations we got to have. But I think that might be the last of these I have. I did want to share this with you. So approached by Mr. Winters, asking if we wanted to buy an ad space on the new scoreboard.
There you go.
I said, Shane, the likelihood of us, someone calling McKinley probably and hiring an architect off the scoreboard is probably not too big. But I'd be
never
more than
know.
willing to sponsor like a message from the board and us collectively. Certainly would want to show that to you guys before we actually said, yes, go with it. But I thought it'd be a nice message. For you guys, just kind of as a partner and what's going on out there now. And this is really about the current activities, obviously. But there's going to be people that don't know what's going on. Right? Or even if they know what's going on, they're probably still going to. So I thought that was a nice message.
Yes,
But
it is.
Please excuse our dust. Like that.
a little bit more dust than we wanted.
Yeah, we dealt with that.
I don't think there's any formal action required. We're paying for it, but I definitely wanted to show it to you guys to make sure. No way, we don't want to be there with McKinley's now. And that's it. That's all I have for
That's
tonight.
wonderful.
Very good. Good job.
Exciting.
Thank you.
All right.
It's very nice.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
It helps when you can see it and visualize a little more what you're talking about to people too.
It's just, the world has come so far since I started in this profession. I mean, being able to get those visualizations together for people to be able to look at it, it just means a little. I mean, I made the mistake of sharing some line black and white drawings earlier this week, and people like color. Certain people definitely like color. It's like, well, where's the wow factor? It's like, well, we're going to put that on there. It doesn't come on the work. So I think it's going to be a beautiful school. I think, hopefully everything, hopefully we get good participation and,
I think we will.
But the opportunities
we'll be
there.
having more conversations as we keep going. The opportunities do it, absolutely, right? Yeah.
I'm amazed that you were my student in middle school, and here we are, helping to build a school.
It's
It's amazing.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna say it. I'm amazed too. Extracurriculars that we were into.
Speak for yourself.
Thank you very much.
I was thinking, thanks, Jim. I was helping prop up that spittoon already.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, the next, on our agenda is delegations. We have none, so we're okay there. Communications, I have Career Technical Education Indicator Scorecard, Amanda Kimball.
There's a copy of this at each of your places. What this is
Oh, I see it.
this is how our CTE programs are scored each year. And I think there was a social media post out about us scoring a 99 out of 100 points on the CTE indicators. But this kind of breaks it down for you to see what those CTE programs are really judged on, which is participation, the concentration, meaning like are they enrolled in at least 2 transcribed credits of that CTE course or that program, and then it kind of goes into the targets that the district has. Completion, which is those students who complete a program. Work-based learning, how our kids are getting that real-world work-based experience. The performance, which is how they do on their workforce entry scores, their endorsements, and then our total district target was 75 points. With that just means we meet all the requirements if we get 75 points, and we were able to receive 99 out of 100, which last year we did meet our target we were 85 out of 100. So kudos to the CTE instructors and teachers in our schools, and then to Mrs. Kimball as well it's not easy work. I look at it as almost a completely different school within a school because their standards are way different than a math standard or an English standard. So kudos to them for the work they put into this.
So the 99, is that like, are these scores that every other school has also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like for each part, like participation, you could get 15 points. For the concentration, a school could get 15 points. And then based on our data, that determines whether we get the points that are allotted for that. So getting 99 out of 100 is really, really, really good.
Yes,
So,
that is amazing.
Yep.
That's great. Do we get any
thank you. And the pat on the
thank
back.
you from the,
Yes.
okay, just checking.
Yep.
I'm just totally curious. The participation percentage, is that really high or
Yes.
average or
That's
in most counties?
in counties our size and schools our size, that participation is higher than normal. When you get into bigger schools, that's a really good participation rate that we have. So I think, and it depends on your where you're at. I guess.
Locale?
Yeah, your locale. Like, so that plays into factors too.
Okay.
Having a strong FFA program
Yeah.
and a growing FBLA program now, and then adding sports medicine to the CTE concentration, all those things, and if I missed one, I'm sorry, but the participation is going way up. So, yeah, that is a really good participation.
Okay, let's move on unless anybody has any other questions. Superintendent's report,
Nothing under superintendent's report this one.
committee reports.
I talked to him at the Middleburn Library. They canceled the meeting until November 7th, which I can't be at that one. Scott would want to go or not. They did hire 2 students, but they don't have anybody else that's actually tutoring.
When are their meetings held?
Once every 3 months, and the last one was supposed to be October 25th, but they didn't have enough work for them.
I mean, November 7th, at what time during the day?
5:30, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
This Thursday?
Okay. So, any other committee reports? Okay. Project updates.
Under project updates, just really quickly, they started to refinish the high school gym floor today. That will take place over the next few days, and then it'll be open for basketball practice starting the next week. So we will be able to function normally in the gymnasium after whatever the procurement time is for the gym floor, which is I think just a couple days now. So you'll see when you go in, there are some still under construction, meaning like there's some wood up on the balcony where the new area is going to be. But as far as that goes, we'll be given full clearance to utilize the high school gymnasium. The other parts, I don't know if anyone has seen the new restrooms in the Commons area. I did send some pictures, I believe, to you all, but very well received, and people have talked very highly of them and how nice they are. And then, as far as the structure itself, I don't know if anyone's driven out back, but we almost are completely finished with block work. So that means it's time for a roof, and things will start moving inside more as the weather turns, if the weather ever turns.
If it doesn't.
Yes.
That's it for project update.
Okay, staff reports,
Nothing under staff reports.
financials,
Nothing there.
policy review.
Nothing under policy review.
Okay, athletic schedules. We have one. Middle school wrestling 24-25 schedule. Do I have a motion to approve that? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Does anybody have any discussion on the schedule for the middle school wrestling? Okay, if not, all those in favor of approving the wrestling schedule for the middle school, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The wrestling schedule is approved.
Mrs. Byers, could I have the board's approval to go back to superintendent's report? I would like to
Sure.
report on what's going on with the SSAC at this point.
Oh, okay.
So, just to back up, clear back to January of last year. So January of last year, the SSAC came out with new classifications. When that came out, there was an appeal process that was set forth by the SSAC. St. Mary's and Tyler Consolidated were the only two schools that followed that procedure, which was you had to send a letter to the state superintendent of schools. Well, then a week or so later, the SSAC came out with something else that said, hey, here's a one-pager, just fill this out and turn it in. So there were tons of schools that did that, and those appeals were heard by the Board of Directors, which is a body that the SSAC puts together. When the Board of Directors heard all those initial appeals, they were all denied, all of them, without question. So then what happened was there were people who, by law, you can file a second appeal, which is what we did. And for that, the SSAC came up with a board of reviews. So there's a board of directors and there's a board of reviews. The board of reviews is made up of people who are outside the SSAC. So I think there was 11 or 12 schools that was heard by the Board of Appeals in August of this year, finally. And the board of review said, the board of review said that all of these schools, I think there were 11, were classified incorrectly by the SSAC. So that is when we removed, and they moved us in football along with all the other schools at that time. Well, in our ruling, that was to all those schools, the Board of Review said the SSAC needed to move those schools in football, but they need to look at the other sports for the 24, 25, 26, 27 school year. So we waited and we waited and we waited for the SSAC to tell us what they were going to do with those other sports. So in the meantime, Mr. Wells and I from St. Mary's talked and said, listen, we got to do something or it's just the season's going to go by. So that fast forwards us to the beginning of October this year. We gave them that much time to fix the problem, and they did not fix the problem. So we filed an injunction on the same exact day with our circuit court and Pleasants County Circuit Court. It just so happened that Pleasants County Circuit Court met before our circuit court and judge did. And that judge, in both instances, in two separate counties, said they granted the injunction, saying that we should be in single A for volleyball and cheer. And that So with St. Mary's, for instance, their judge ruled before the tournament started, before the sectional tournament started. Our judge ruled after the first game was played. But Judge Wilson said, it doesn't matter. The SSAC, you need to fix it. So their fix was that we play St. Mary's on Saturday in single A sectional volleyball to see who goes on to play Trinity, which was supposed to be tomorrow night. Fast forward to today, right here in the last couple hours. Trinity filed an injunction with Mon County Circuit Court that says that they should have to play St. Mary's because the tournament already started. Trinity in their ruling was not bashing the decision or they weren't saying anything about us as Tyler Consolidated. They think what we did was right. What they're saying is the SSAC made a mess and it shouldn't be taken out on them, I guess is kind of what they're saying. So now the circuit, the judge in Mon County has said Trinity will play Trinity will play St. Mary's tomorrow, and right now the SSAC does not know what they're going to do with Tyler Consolidated High School.
Oh, you're kidding me.
So what we're saying is we've given suggestions, and they said we don't know what we're going to do, and I said, well, you're not going to leave our girls out. I can tell you that much. I mean, the judge said we're single, not so. Here's where we're at. The SSAC had since January to fix this. They had another chance in August. They had another chance. So they've had a Board of Reviews rule this, and they've had three circuit courts judges say what they have done in classification was wrong. So I don't think I don't need to explain that anymore. I don't know what other proof you need. Actually 4, because Doddridge County got an injunction filed and it was granted in football. So obviously the classification system in which they put in place was not transparent. That's the biggest thing. And it was not able to be explained to those member schools that thought that, they couldn't explain why we were double A instead of single A. They couldn't explain it to us. So that's kind of why the Board of Review said that they need to be where they should be in the initial, classifications. So that's where we're at now. I'm sure it's been going this way for about a week now, 100 miles an hour, trying to figure this out. And really who's suffering in this, and I hate it, is our girls, our volleyball team. They were ready to go play Oak Glen last week. They were getting on the bus, and the SSAC said, nope, you're going to play St. Mary's Saturday. So then we've been getting ready to go play Trinity Christian all the rest of the week, and then today, the day before they're supposed to go play Trinity Christian, sorry, we don't have a place for you right now. So to say that I'm a little bit agitated is probably an understatement, and I'm sure the coaches and the girls are just as agitated because all they want to do is play. They love playing the game of volleyball. It's not their fault that things happened when they happened, but I can tell you that in my opinion, and I'm not afraid to say this on the camera, is the SSAC had the opportunity to fix this many months ago, and they drug their feet and did not. So it's their problem, and they need to fix it.
When we discussed it before,
Yes.
that's exactly what was said, was that really the judges sort of told them,
Yes.
you need to fix this,
Yes.
and they did nothing.
Yep, exactly.
So I thought if we were single A in our sports like football, everybody was single.
Well, that was my thought
You
was
would
how
have thought.
can you justify having a football team who's single A and it's about competitive balance and it's about safety? How is it okay for every other sport to still be classified as double A? It makes zero sense. How can you have a boys sport, mostly a boys sport in football, and then have a girls sport in volleyball? How can you say that those aren't equal? You can't do that. That's a huge.
And are you going to have to go through this again for our spring sports?
Absolutely. I already filed it. So
Basketball?
yes,
So I know you had asked us about
yes.
given us blessings.
Yeah.
So we're, as far as I'm concerned, you got mine, so.
Okay. Well, yes, we're gonna have to fight this now. There's a new classification system coming out next year. If they can explain to us how they're doing it and it's fair, we're not gonna cause any problems. And I don't think any other school would, as long as it's transparent and they're able to tell you. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and this is in public court records, that the SSAC said to the Board of Reviews, this is the way we've always done things. Well, that's not fair. That doesn't matter if this is the way you've always done things. That makes no sense. So that's where we're at with that, and it's very frustrating for our girls, for our school. I know some of our teams took a pretty good bashing on social media, and some people from other schools thought that was necessary, which it isn't. I mean, our girls had nothing to do with this. They work hard at what they do, just along as our cheerleaders are working hard at what they do. They should have the opportunity to perform in the classification in which 2 judges now have said and a Board of Reviews have said. So that's where we're at with that. So sorry.
So Shane, you may not be able to answer this question, but I got my volleyball all-state ballots today.
Yeah.
Do I vote for our girls for single A all-state or double A all-state?
Well, I don't mean to make light of this, but if you can put them in every
I'm gonna put them in both
classification.
classification.
Yeah.
Them both.
So you make all-state and double A and A be a precedent.
It would be a precedent.
Make history.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do. I thought I would do that anyway, and they might kick my ballot or whatever happens, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So better
That's
get that
all
out to
right.
you because you're going to hear about it.
I'm glad you
Yes.
did. That's,
Well, I'm glad you got it out there because maybe it will stop the people who don't know what they're talking about
no, it won't do
saying
that.
the things that they're saying.
Right, I got you.
Yeah, Facebook is alive and well. Yes, we're on O, approval of requests, trip requests.
Make the motion.
Second.
Larry made the motion, Scott made the second. Do I have any comments, questions about the trip requests? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries to approve the 2 trip requests. On to other requests.
Just one, Ashley Farrell's asking permission for her students, her kids to cross county lines to attend Tyler County schools for the remainder of the 24-25 school year.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve that request?
I'll make a motion.
Diana made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Andy seconded it. Sorry, I stuttered there for a minute. Does anybody have any questions about that request? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, personnel.
There were no resignations after publication.
Okay, resignations.
We do have one resignation. Lindsay Tennant resigns her position as the head cheer coach at Tyler Consolidated Middle School, and that's effective October 31st.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept that resignation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Diana seconded it again. Do we have any discussion on that resignation? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, employments, transfers, and rescissions.
Yeah, under employments, transfers, and rescissions, what we're looking at here are mentor teachers for our new employees, young employees. So I'm asking that Jake Myers, Jesse Masters, Tomla Payton, David Riggle, Julie Kozad, Judy Thoburn be approved as mentor teachers in our high school, middle school, and then 2 at SES. Under G, Employ Zach Wilhoit as the science fair coordinator at Tyler Consolidated High School. That's something we haven't had in a while, but he's looking to have a science fair. And then H is employ Adam Cunningham as a substitute custodian. That would be effective immediately also. And I would ask for approval of all of those.
Okay, do I have a motion, to approve those? Scott, and then Larry seconded that, motion. Do I have any discussion on those employments? Okay, then all those in favor of employing, those people in those positions, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, other personnel? No
No.
other personnel? Okay, allowed and authorized payment of the bills. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
Make a motion.
Andy makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Scott seconded it. Does anybody have any questions about the payment of the bills? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Payment of the bills has been approved. Okay, requests for agenda items for the next board meeting. Does anybody have anything they'd like put on the agenda for the next board meeting?
Just so it's on the minutes, I will provide, Patrick was talking about the impact statement that we have to prepare to send to the State Department. I'll provide you all with that at the next board meeting. That way you guys can see what it is. It's a pretty lengthy document that goes over things like difference in time and transportation for kids if we have a new school, what the overall usage of buildings is, what the wear and tear is in our old buildings, things like that. But I'll share that document with you all at the next board meeting. I just want to get that on the minutes.
Okay, does anybody have anything? If you do, you have time to call Mr. Hiley and request it before the next board meeting. The next regular meeting of our board will be held Monday, November 18th at 7 o'clock here in this room. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make it.
Andy made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Scott seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed? There better not be anybody.
It was 2 days ago, it'd be 10 o'clock.
So you don't have a clue about basketball.